Our second scripture today is Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. There was a lot to be afraid about this week, wasn't there? I have a friend who is a huge Bernie fan. If she was a he, we would certainly call her a Bernie bro. And she's one of those folk in California who has decided that she enjoys the experience of going to the polling place and voting there. And so she did that on Tuesday. She voted. And she came home and she posted on Facebook that after she voted, she was depressed and afraid. She was imagining all of the possible scenarios that might happen. She imagined Bernie winning, but then not winning the election for president. She imagined Bernie winning and then winning the election for president and not being able to get anything accomplished. She imagined Bernie losing to Biden and Biden losing the election. And she imagined Biden winning the primary and then winning the election and doing things that... And all of these possibilities were in front of her mind, and she was unable to embrace the only one that she saw as a positive. And she couldn't hold on to that. And then, now, she doesn't like Biden. She despises Trump. And she was putting all those things together, and she left the voting booth deflated and afraid. None of the goals for which she is hoping were able to take hold in her imagination as being possible. And then I started to talk to some other folk, and I saw that the people who were Biden supporters had the exact same response. They had all of the same possibilities, only they had changed a few of the policy goals, and they put Biden's name instead of Bernie, but they still were feeling that same sense of, oh, it's just bad. There's no good possibilities here. And then I talked to a number of my friends who were Elizabeth Warren supporters. And they were afraid and depressed too. Their depression was different because they were looking at a situation where they saw a woman they believed to be the most competent of any of the candidates, with good plans, who was dismissed first by the media and then by the voters solely because she was female. And they played out this narrative, and even if they could see some positives coming, they were still left with the sense that we lived in a country where women don't get their full recognition. And so they were even more afraid for the future than the other groups. It was kind of fun, because the only group that I talked to, or only group of friends or acquaintances who weren't afraid, were the Trump supporters. And they could see all of the supposedly negative possibilities for them, but whether it was because of their sense of the strength of their candidate or because of the information bubble they're part of, and we're all part of information bubbles, by the way, and their particular information bubble was telling them that their candidate is unbeatable and he will win in a landslide, whatever else they can imagine. And so those folk, they weren't afraid. But they were the only ones. And my information bubble doesn't include a lot of those folks, so I wasn't seeing a whole lot of that. I was seeing mostly fear. And of course, politics weren't the only thing that we were afraid of this week, were they? There is COVID-19. That sounds like it should be the name of a science fiction movie, doesn't it? It will be. Yeah, it probably will be, yes. And here we sit. Most of us are in the high-risk group. Some of us are in the really high-risk group. Some of us should have stayed home.
Don't say that.
No, that's not true. And we're getting conflicting information, and people are panicking. If you go to the grocery store, some places you can't even get toilet paper, let alone hand sanitizer. And what did somebody say? They were putting it up on, it was for sale on Amazon for $400, $500 for a bottle of hand sanitizer? Come on. Yeah. And asking, if I gargle with bleach, is that good? There's a real quick answer for that one. No. It might keep you from getting COVID-19.
You won't need it.
You won't need it. We had a concert here on Friday night, and I got calls through the week. Is the concert still on? Because of, you know. Yes, just don't kiss anybody. And then I saw one of the largest music conferences in the country, South by Southwest, happens in Austin, Texas, at the end of this month, got canceled. Canceled. And one of the people who came to the concert on Friday was really excited because he had a big national or international conference that was supposed to take place in Anaheim at the Anaheim Convention Center, which is huge, and it got canceled. People are afraid. People are afraid. They're telling churches how to make plans for being church when you're not allowed to come together and have worship services. People are afraid. And then there was the stock market, right? Well, I did something really stupid. I looked. Since February 19th, the stock market, this was as of Friday, so I don't know. Stock market had lost $3.6 trillion in value. $3.6 trillion in value. And because of the shape of our economy right now, because of policy plans that have been put in place, there really aren't many tools left that the government has to try to prop things up. I mean, you can't lower interest rates lower than where they pretty much are already. There's not a lot that can be done to help out. And then we continue to get conflicting and confused messaging about all of these areas of life, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help. And on top of all of that, we got the normal anxieties of life. We got the normal anxieties of life. It's a scary time, isn't it? It's a scary time. But the reality is that every time has its scary pieces, its own share of fears and anxieties. There is a reason that the most common commandment in Scripture is be not afraid, because people are afraid. And it is part of the human condition sometimes, isn't it? Now, with all of that as kind of foundational piece, I'm preaching on a psalm today, and I don't preach on the Psalms very often because they're hard. They're hard to preach on precisely because they are so universal. We read them, and every single one of us can read ourselves into them because they don't have enough detail to tell us they don't fit. And so we make them fit easily. They are so universally human that it becomes difficult to preach on, because one of the things that makes preaching easy is the specificity of a passage. You can look at it and say, this is what was happening to this person and these people. And so we can go from there and either identify with that or not. But with most Psalms, it's pretty hard to do that. This one is one that's a little bit easier. But it's only a little bit easier because I'm going to read some stuff into it. And you're going to have to run with me on that. And if somebody's watching this on YouTube who's a real biblical scholar, they might say, oh, that's called eisegesis. That's when you impose something on the text. Well, there we be. This passage, one of the possible understandings of it, and I think it's a good one, is that it was written by a person who was getting ready to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Probably an annual pilgrimage. They went once a year to take their big offering to God and to bring either a spotless calf or a spotless lamb, something significant, and they would bring it once a year to Jerusalem and make an offering to God, to show their faith and their faithfulness, and to be part of that larger that larger community of faith. And so once a year they would do that, and each time as the day grew closer, they were gathering together all the stuff they needed to have to make the journey. They had to have provisions to go through the desert to get there, and they had to have either a spotless lamb or a spotless calf, and a way to get that through the desert all the way to Jerusalem, or they had to have enough money that once they got there, they could buy a spotless lamb or a spotless calf. Which, of course, you know, by the time you get to Jerusalem, if that's what you need, they come at a premium price because they know they've got a captured audience there. And so, the person's putting all of this stuff together, and they're getting nervous. And every day, they walk past their front door and they look out and they see the hills. And the hills are symbolic of the wilderness through which they have to pass. They are symbolic of that place that is really dangerous. Because once you get out there into the wilderness, there are robbers. And they know if you're traveling through the wilderness, you've got all of these provisions with you because you can't do it any other way. And they know if you're on your way to Jerusalem, either you've got a spotless lamb or a spotless calf, or better than that, you got some money. And they're ready to relieve you of that. And it is the desert, after all. And you're not traveling in an air-conditioned Cadillac. You've got all of the problems of the desert to deal with. It might be that there isn't any water for your whole trip. Or worse than that, maybe you're going in the rainy season and it might be as dry as it can be one minute, and the next minute you're in the middle of a raging torrent. It's a scary place. And then there are wild animals. And some of them would very happily help you to not have to take that spotless lamb all the way to Jerusalem. And so you're afraid. You're afraid. And as you're looking to the hills, you're contemplating all of those difficulties. From where will my help come? There is no Motel 6 keeping its light on for you. There is no fast food restaurant where you can stop and get a quick meal and use the restroom. There are no locks to keep things secure through the night. There are no state police out there enforcing the law. Where will my help come from? How can I be sure that I will be able to get from here all the way to Jerusalem in one piece? And in the midst of that, the psalmist is reminded in their heart of hearts, I do not make this journey alone. I do not make this journey alone. That God goes with them. keeping them safe, never slumbering, never losing attention, always caring, always there, that God is there even in the middle of the wilderness. I had to smile when I was thinking about the title for the sermon, and it changed as the sermon was coming into place, and you saw it, kept person. I asked Cheryl what she thought of if I said someone was a kept woman. It wasn't something that you'd find in the Psalms. We know that bad things happen, right? If I made the claim that bad things don't happen, you might have laughed at me, or you would be aghast at my disconnectedness with reality, right? Whatever happens in politics over the next couple of months, some of us are going to be pretty unhappy. Regardless. If COVID-19 acts as it's expected to act, it is likely that some of us sitting here right now will catch it. They're saying 70% of the world's population will likely get it. Maybe not, but there's a really good chance. None of us will not know somebody who's caught it. Let me put that in a sense that it's a little less awkward. We will all know someone who had COVID-19. We will. If you have stocks, you've already taken a hit. And if you were silly enough to do what I did and look, you feel it. And even if we don't have stocks, all of us will feel the impacts on the broader economy of all of this stuff that's going on. From the inconveniences of not being able to get the supplies you want, maybe including toilet paper and water bottles. If you go to Costco, there's this huge section where there's nothing at all. Nothing. And yeah, we know that the toilet paper doesn't come from China. But people are afraid. What if I get quarantined and I'm not allowed to leave my house? What am I going to do? Yeah. There you go. So we may have those inconveniences all the way up to bigger inconveniences. Gatherings canceled, travel banned. We've got tickets to go of all places to Italy in May. We're waiting. We're not making any decisions yet. Bad things happen. Bad things may have happened to the psalmist. The psalmist wrote this psalm before they went to Jerusalem. I'm looking to the hills from the comfort of my little house. And I'm wondering, where will my help come from? Well, my help is going to come from God. Maybe the psalmist on their way, maybe they were robbed. Maybe that gorgeous little lamb that they were taking to the temple ended up over some robber's campfire. And they had a nice feast. Maybe that the money that they were carrying hidden in a little bag underneath their saddle on the donkey, maybe that ended up in some robber's pocket. Maybe that little calf that they were leading faithfully through the desert was eaten by a lion. Maybe they got lost on the way, and by the time they found their way back to the road, they had used up everything and maybe even ate that little lamb. And so when they get to Jerusalem, they've made all of that trip and they've got nothing with which to make an offering. Things go wrong sometimes. Bad things happen. But the truth that the pilgrim knew in this passage is still true. We never face the bad things alone. 6 times in that short little passage, the writer tells us we are kept people. 6 times we are reminded that we are kept people. Kept, held in the loving arms of God, whatever comes our way. I responded to my friend on Facebook. She said, I have no hope. And I wrote her back and I said, there's always hope. There's always hope. Even if terrible things happen, there's always reason to believe that something good can still come. The most horrible times in our history, and we've got horrible times in history, right? We can point at them, we can name them one by one, but we can also say, yeah, but we're not there anymore. We got through that. It was horrible. People died. Terrible things happened. People did horrendous things in the past. But we made it through. And hopefully we learned and we grew from it. And better than that, we can trust that God is at work. What's the saying? If things aren't good, it's only because God isn't finished yet. And then, of course, there is that thing that we say again and again. God is good.
All the time.
God is good.
All the time.
But as soon as you say that, I'm sure that you're thinking, especially in this sermon, well, maybe not all the time. Well, maybe that's just because God isn't finished yet. And I truly believe, at the center of my heart, I believe it, that even when things are terrible, there is yet another word to be spoken. There is yet another thing to experience. There is yet more. That even when things are horrible, God is still there. There is always hope. Even when all we can see is the wilderness in front of us, the psalmist reminds us that yes, even there God goes with us. When all we can see is the desert where everything is parched and dry and dead, there is yet to come spring rains and that desert will blossom and look amazing. And there is another side and you can get through it. There is one who keeps us with protection by day and by night and who holds us in grace. Whatever we face, whatever we are experiencing, God is with us. God is there. And God is keeping us. Our going out and our coming in from this time forward, and not just tomorrow, not next week, not November, but forevermore. You and I, we're kept people.